find the extraordinary experts who truly understand how the system works, right? So that they can help illuminate and find that path forward within the system.
You know, we are one strategy using some psychedelics to get access to this, but there are a bunch of other efforts going as well. And it's just making sure that we're collaborating and connecting with them, saying, you know, we're just here to be good partners in the process.
Welcome to System Catalyst, the show that cracks the code for making the world a better place. I'm your host, English Saul. Today, I'm joined by Jojo Maislin and Jeff Walker, two incredible leaders in the systems change space. You already know Jeff as the host of previous seasons. He is a philanthropist, systems thinker, and former CEO and co-founder of CC&P Capital, the successor to JP Morgan Partners. He's held major leadership roles across finance and philanthropy, and now serves on boards like New Profit and the MIT Media Lab. Jojo Maislin is a social entrepreneur and field catalyst at the Office of Systems Catalyst, where she's helping coordinate national efforts to bring psychedelic-assisted care safely and responsibly to the U.S. healthcare system. She's spent over 25 years building big, complex initiatives, everything from post-earthquake recovery in Haiti to partnerships with groups like Lululemon, TOMS, Partners in Health, and the Clinton Foundation. Jojo and Jeff, welcome to System Catalyst. I'm so happy you're here.
Thanks, English.
Yeah, so nice to be here.
I know. Well, it's such a treat for me because I got to see Jojo in person, which was absolutely the most delightful thing.
Agreed.
And we spent, I think, Jojo, we spent that whole event with me and you basically in a corner talking about all of the amazing work that you're doing in the psychedelic space.
Thank you. You're too kind. It was so nice to see you and spend time live. It was the first time we'd actually met in person.
I know. Isn't that so funny? Like in the world of kind of like the virtual digital age, it's like You feel like you know all of these people, but then it's like, oh, wait, I've just seen you on a screen. And now we actually get to be in person together. So I'm so glad you guys are here. And Jeff, it's always lovely to see you. Thank you so much for coming back and joining us for this episode.
Be fun.
So, you know, we've talked a little bit with each of you kind of, you know, separately, but I'd love for you both to maybe start off sharing a little bit about your background as it pertains to the psychedelic space and really what got you into this work in psychedelics. So maybe Jojo, I'll start with you.
Yeah, of course. So first, I'll just share briefly that I'm born and raised in Montreal, Canada. I am a CPA by training, and as you mentioned, a social entrepreneur at heart. I just really love the development side of business and taking ideas and turning them into action. I love bringing things to life, right? So I'm just perfect for a nascent field. There's so much to be done here. And I have an appetite for startups and that development work. So I started in hospitality just very briefly and then found myself on the ground post-earthquake in Haiti. And now, but I'd always been really dreaming my entire career about using my skills every single day to help people and have this greater meaning. I do feel like it's really relevant to share while I was in Haiti. I was invited by the Clinton Global Initiative. And that feels really relevant, particularly in this call, because they apply a catalyst model. So for the past 15 years, I've been really active and I could see the power and potential of the systems change by bringing people together and helping them coordinate and collaborate. It was a real honor to witness that. But like so many other people, what brought me to the psychedelic field is either yourself, you're in trouble, or someone you love deeply is in trouble, right? And in my case, somebody I love deeply was in trouble. And I started to poke around into the problem itself and understood that it was related to the antidepressants, which at that time has been the greatest breakthrough of all time in mental health therapy. I really, really was frustrated with the answers I was getting about how we could help people in these moments, and really just started digging. And I dug deep, and it was about 6 years ago, just at the beginning of the pandemic, somebody whispered in my ear, ketamine therapy. It's an above ground option. And both of us went to get the treatment, and it was really, really helpful to both of us from just the medicine itself, but everything else went wrong. It was over medicalized. They misdosed him too low, so we'd have to come back and do it all over again. They charged us too much money for what should be available and accessible to everybody, given the enormous potential of these medicines. And at the time, they did not suggest assisted psychotherapy, which is really important to pair with these medicines. They actually said, we're going to release you into the wild. So it made me, I was deeply passionate immediately about access and high quality care because of my own personal experience. And it's brought me here today. That's really what sparked the interest.
Wow. That's, I think that's such a important theme too, especially with a lot of what we see with Systems Catalyst is it really is, to your point. It's either you are directly impacted by the problem or someone you love is. And so thank you so much for sharing that, Jojo.
Yes.
Jeff, you and I have talked a lot about your journey and how you sort of came into psychedelics, but can you just kind of give us all a primer about where you started on this path?
Yeah, sure. I spent a lot of time in mental health and, thinking about everything from working in community health with you, English, and maternal health, and in the larger health system, and kind of what the big levers are. And probably about 8 years ago, as I've been working on lots of mental health issues over the last 20 to 30 years around mindfulness and subtle energy, we have another collaborative around that as well, and others. And, I kept coming across this tool of psychedelics, which was at the time, starting to come up, but, still, not exactly what, everyone was pointing to as answers. But then starting to discover that the science side of it all started showing that, these tools can be amazing adjunct assists when people are in major depression or have major anxiety issues or have alcohol issues and addiction issues. It went down the list, and particularly around PTSD. So said, maybe we should add this to the tool belt of our strategies around mental health. And so to me, it's not just about psychedelics. It's just using psychedelics as another tool along the entire expanse of behavioral health interventions that therapists can use. And that to me is kind of like the important system aspect of it all, and kind of thinking about how it all fits in. So I experimented with that by looking and investing in some research. We've funded research at major institutions like Johns Hopkins and McGill and UCSF. And we've supported companies like Lycos that's developing MDMA, which amazingly, through phase 3 trials, and now it's submitted to the FDA, is 75% effective in eliminating PTSD, and particularly for veterans. And veterans are the ones that, really got a lot of the attention. But actually, it's women are 10 times more likely to have PTSD because of sexual traumas and others. And so everybody needs it. And so the drug has been going through the FDA and will likely be approved in the next 1.5 to 2 years. And by the way, psilocybin, which is also being used for major depression, will likely be approved over the next 1.5 or 2 years. So it's not like this may happen, it's happening. And the companies are all set up to do it, Compass and Lycos and others. So we need to get ready for it. And so that's, to me, was the motivation to say, how do we start embedding these ideas into the larger health system? How do we kind of think about it in mental health? How do we start having tools around that? And Jojo is the perfect person for us to work with, because she is, as you've just heard, kind of great experience in pulling together partnerships, going after these key issues in English. You and I have talked about this many times, but finding somebody who has a managed ego, which she does, which has ability to network and ask the questions as to what should be done and how to do it. And then to hold, and we'll talk about this more later, but to hold the partnerships together so that everyone who is a partner loves to talk to each other, loves to get on Zoom calls with each other, and loves to solve problems together. That's, an inherently important thing when you're coming up with these system change models. So she's been great at helping us do that.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been a real team effort. I'd have to say, I could not do this without you.
And Jojo, maybe you can say a couple of words on the road mapping process, which I think has been something that's really helped us unify our approach.
Yeah, so we've been working on what we call a collaborative action plan. And essentially what that is it's taking a 5-year lens because we believe that a 5-year plan is the perfect time frame for us to have probably an FDA approval and enough time for rollout and reimbursement for real action to take place. And I guess I just want to take it back for a second. What we've learned is to bring in any typical new mental health therapy, it takes anywhere from 15 to 20 years for that mental health therapy to actually reach the populations that need it most. And what we're aiming to do is to compress that timeline to as much as possible. How can we affect meaningful change in this 5-year window? How can we map out exactly what needs to happen for any new mental health therapy to hit the market and really identify where philanthropy can play an outsized role, right? And then when we map out what we've got covered versus where there are gaps, we're creating all these wonderful opportunities to accelerate the safe and ethical adoption of psychedelic-assisted care into the U.S. healthcare system. And in order to do so, we had to get out of our psychedelic bubble. We had to really begin to engage healthcare experts, clinical experts, and understand what needs to happen, and then identify the opportunities where we could truly be most helpful. So that's what we've been working on. And this is the opportunities where we bring our catalytic partners together, the project partners and the donors. We bring all the stakeholders into these rooms, having these discussions, discussing. And what I want to say is, what I'm learning is it's a complicated system, right? There's not one way of doing anything. There's so many different ways. And so we're trying as clearly as possible to share the plans that we're making and the strategy behind it and the reasons why, so that people can read it and get excited about it, and join us or help make it better and improve it.
And there's this 15 years is important because English, you might remember in our maternal health strategies, we ran across cutting in half maternal deaths in 5 years was an important common goal. That was important, simple statement. We're going to make the 15 years compressed down to 5 years because of the work we do. So that's the goal. It's like everything that needed to happen in those 15 years, we're going to make it happen in 5 years because of the catalytic activities that we're putting together. So everybody leaned forward and said, that's interesting, because we know this change is coming. And we know so many people think that psychedelics is going to save their lives, but they don't exactly know how to access it. They're a little afraid of it. The therapists are concerned about how it's going to change their whole practice, and so they're afraid. And so how do we start opening up the system so that it gets access to the people that really need it, but also starts understanding what changes are necessary? Because just throwing this drug out into the world, which is what the drug companies are going to do, because the FDA is set up to approve drugs only. But these drugs do nothing but open you up for change. They don't change you. They're not like the miracle cures that a lot of these drugs typically in the past have been brought to market to do. And so these drugs open you up. They're a different kind of drug. And you need a therapist to work with you to be help you go through an integration process, to help you understand what your mind is doing. In a PTSD process, when you use MDMA, it opens your mind. It slows down what they call the default mode network. So it quiets it. So you don't have this horrible example of a veteran in Afghanistan remembering so many people dying in front of them, and they can't think about anything else. The MDMA allows you to say, that's true, but I can actually put that behind me and think forward. That's what happens. And so that takes a therapist to help work through it. And so there's a lot more people involved in the process than just taking a drug. And so that's why it's important for us to look at that system and start working with lots of the other associations and institutions that are involved to try to put together a different kind of model. So how do you have an individualized model? How do you start training therapists and others to start working through this? And what Jojo helps do is bring together all these different constituents to talk to each other and nudge each other, saying, hey, we should really coordinate collecting data together. And so we have a call every 2 weeks that is one of the most fun calls anybody ever gets on. And who likes getting on Zooms? I mean, it's okay, but literally they actually fight to show up. And so we have literally 30 people every 2 weeks who get together and try to solve problems together. It's not PowerPoint presentations. It's not like, gee, I want to raise money, and so let's do no, that's too boring. Yeah. If they actually all get together and we get hearing about, that's how you're staffing this. And so we get somebody who's a practice manager going through it, or Sandy talking about, the 61, professors that she's been training and bringing together and the issues that's coming up, or we get Brain Futures coming in, kind of talking about, here's what American Psychiatric Association starting to worry about. What do we do together? So who does that? But that to me is so important, because you have that positive energy, that feeling of amazing partnership, that we can all work together to solve these problems. That's really helpful. And so Jojo, with you in this role, you're doing the convenings, you're doing the cold calls, you're doing the emailing, you're doing the operationalization of hurting in so many aspects. So what has been, what have you experienced any just sort of like sticking points, or what has been the most difficult? Because I can imagine we're taking something that is as, the U.S. healthcare system is not what I would consider malleable or adaptable.
Right.
So how are you experiencing that tension for what it is you're trying to accomplish in this role?
Well, I think that the greatest tension that we're feeling is, in this process, is that this isn't big pharma, right? These are drug developers with big heart that are coming into this right now, and so we're missing some of those big budgets that would maybe set up CMS for success in the national coverage decision, to make sure that we're covering these therapies, not only just the medicine, but with assisted therapy and at the right coverage amount, right? We're finding that some of the challenges that we're coming up against are things like in the workforce development. We understand clearly how to educate and possibly train future specialists once there's an FDA approval. But what do we do with the existing practitioner base, right? That's already out there, that needs to be psychedelic literate to be able to inform patients about this care and refer patients to this care. And also for the practitioners that are already out there, how do they get trained? This isn't a course that you could take over the weekend. This isn't anything that can happen in short form. It needs the right training behind it. And these are some of the gaps that we're finding that we don't have answers to just yet. But I do want to mention that we're just at the beginning, right? We have a lot of work to do now that we've identified these gaps in coming up with the optimal strategy to get there fastest. And I have no doubt that we'll be able to do that, because again, we're bringing together the right team.
There's a couple of levers that we've been able to use. One is this PSFC network, which brings in talent and continued flow of new donors who are interested in this segment. And there's all sorts of, not just PSFC, but for global, but Mindful Philanthropy and other donor groups who are all seeing, Jojo and team being these catalysts that they can connect with and start learning about and joining together with. And so it's great to be, the momentum you can see increasing. And then number two, she's been able to bring in, she can talk about this, really amazing people, Rachel, Joy, and others who want to work on this question. And so people are seeing, oh, I want to work on that. And gee, this is somebody I can work with, and they have amazing expertise. And the other point I want to bring up is the state-by-state model that we can learn from Oregon that's actually already legalized access to psilocybin. We can learn from Colorado, which is actually already allowed access to plant medicines. So it's not federally legal, but it is legal at the state level, kind of like cannabis was, but it's more regulated. And so how can you learn from data? How can you learn from the systems around that? And then we have worked with our teams on New Mexico with PMHA and HAF, and this is where Jojo has done an amazing job, where we've allowed them to look at how to bring these ideas to a state, how to get it through the state legislature, and how to get Medicaid to reimburse it. And so this was really unique in bringing, this complete community-based led model with veterans, with women with sexual trauma, with using a university, and then working so that the governor will approve and the state legislature will approve. And so that was us. That was us through our different entities working together to accomplish that. And now we're looking at other states to bring it to as well. So the more you can see that there's progress here, the more you can see that there's some momentum in different groups coming together, the more people will start coming together.
I am wondering too, just like, even in my own experience, it feels like this is an issue whose time has come with just the mass amount of kind of interest and curiosity that both that you're speaking to and that we're witnessing in the broader space around the term of psychedelics and it being more and more commonplace, even in conversation and going along with all these different tools like, breath work or meditation and just sort of how this is becoming something that everybody, I think some of it, and I'll just speak to my own experience, but it's once you start experiencing these things and having such a positive interaction with these tools from, even just meditation all the way to different types of psychedelic drugs and ketamine, once you are in that and you come out of these experiences, I think to your point, Jeff, around feeling so much more open, so much more ready to embrace life in such a positive way. It's really hard to be someone who's experienced that and then look around the world and see pain in a way that you're like, actually, I think that there's a helpful aid here. You see all of these people who are just white knuckling their way through depression and anxiety, and you want so badly for them to have access to these tools. And I'm wondering how much from an individual experience level that plays into this groundswell of just support and curiosity and passion that we're starting to really see in this space.
Well, English, I can share with you from my own experience, because this is, there was another project that I had worked on earlier, a couple of years ago, that was in support of the system. And I can tell you 4 years ago, we were not getting this response. It just in this short time there, because there's so much stigma around psychedelics, as we all know, but in this short time, we've gone from, people not wanting to talk to us whatsoever to doors being opened right now because, to your point, there's too many stories of people suffering enormously without having access to the tools that they need. And it's just truly unacceptable, right? And so if you hear enough of the stories of people finding not only immediate relief, but with lots of work, this can be curative, right? When paired with other healing modalities, when taken very seriously. And as a result, we're seeing, we weren't able, there wasn't such an open arms approach, I would say, or reception from different government agencies, professional societies. It feels like from where I'm sitting, it's starting to move quickly, but not fast enough.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting the wind behind you for sure around mental health. People are suffering and they're looking for, tools. You're getting Michael Pollan writing his book, and it made people more interested. There's a new movie, if you haven't seen it, on Netflix called of Waves and War, which is about Navy SEALs going through treatment in ketamine for PTSD, and they were in bad shape. I mean, they were alcoholic. They had significant PTSD questions, issues, and going through Ibogaine, it is gone. These problems are gone. Wow. And there's no withdrawal either. And that's actually what they're seeing is people with opiate addictions going through Ibogaine treatments in Mexico have no withdrawal and they have no more addiction, wow. which is kind of amazing. And so that's why the state of Texas allocated $50 million to do research on Ibogaine. That's why there was a major gathering in Colorado around this question. This is Ibogaine, which has not even started phase 1 reviews yet. So there's this hope being generated. And we have a couple of molecules that are now going through and going to be here soon. So people are starting to see these things are pretty amazing. How do we do this? And what we have to really be careful of is that there is not this psychedelic exceptionalism. It is not these one tools that are going to solve all problems. Yeah. People get, you're really hooked on some of these. Oh, this is the answer. We're going to solve all things. No, this is actually a system question. This is actually how you embed this in to the overall system so that people start understanding how it will change the system along with all the other tools that we have as well. But you're right. There's a lot of excitement.
Do you think that the funding space is also beginning to open an aperture? Like, are you seeing more support from a resource point of view as well?
I think we're starting to, right? As Jeff had mentioned, PSFC is doing an extraordinary job of bringing in new people that are interested, and it's continuously growing. And on the other side, which is happening probably a little bit slower, but it's happening, is like we said, there's people that are curious but not yet convinced that are showing up on our calls and are expressing interest and asking for more information, and how can we help them talk to their boards and help people feel more comfortable and wrap their heads around these promising tools.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that, for people out there who are looking to really sort of climb the mountain and work to change some of these systems that you all are working in, what advice do you have for other people in the space who are like really wanting to be systems players or systems catalysts? And what would you tell them about working in this field?
Yeah, I think there's been a consistent thread put here, which is find the extraordinary experts who truly understand how the system works, right? So that they can help illuminate and find that path forward within the system. And I think where we're going to start having a lot of fun is now connecting these ideas with visionaries and creative thinkers to start thinking about how we could push those boundaries, because we're not going to fix the system, but as much as we can take a look at it and be helpful, that would be extraordinary. Mm. But the number one thing that we've been doing is finding this team that will help us get there.
It's building trust. It's trust in the larger system overall. It's being open to bringing in more partners who want to work on this. it's also understanding that there is so many people who are interested in mental health. There's all sorts of different efforts around youth mental health and family mental health. And it's not using psychedelics around it necessarily. It's giving them other training. I'm a chair of Contemplative Science Center at UVA, and we're working with 18 universities, giving people access to meditation, body movement, peer work, social emotional learning models. These are all part of the larger solution. So, we are one strategy using some psychedelics to get access to this, but there are a bunch of other efforts going as well. And it's just making sure that we're collaborating and connecting with them, saying, we're just here to be good partners in the process. And we're discovering good partners all the time. And I think that's, important. And let's understand also, we're just working in the United States, and this is a worldwide problem. In English, you and I worked in Africa for 15 years. It is of desperate need in Africa, but you can't just take the pills and throw them in Africa.
Yeah.
You have to actually work through the system with the ministries and others, saying, let's use what we've learned here in the United States, just as we're using the learnings from each state for other states, how we use the learnings from here in the United States to bring it overseas. And so we're starting to work on that already. The Chai guys are putting together proposals for that. But this is a long term, and this will be, quite a while before we start bringing all these tools to the rest of the world.
So as we close, one of the things that I've been doing a little bit more this season is asking our guests, if there was one thought or one question that you would want to leave our listeners with, just as it pertains to this work and this conversation, if folks are sort of talking later tonight at dinner, what is the question that you want to be asked maybe around the kitchen table after people listen to this episode?
So on my end, when I think about that, I think about every single one of us having somebody that in our lives that is struggling, whether it's a child, a parent, a coworker, a best friend, and imagine that the care is out there and available that can actually help them feel better, but it's just the delivery systems are not yet ready. If you sit with that question, that is what drives this work. That is the reason that we are so busy working towards system readiness, right? We know these tools can be helpful to so many people. How can we do everything we can in preparation for FDA approval so that these can reach the populations that need it most fastest?
For me, people come to you and say, okay, I need this now. What am I going to do? And right now, it's ketamine. That's the legal strategy. Or people are going to the underground and saying, okay, who do I find? And so it's word of mouth, it's referral, but people don't know where to go. And so how do we set up a system that allows people to say, I know who to go to. I can go to my chaplain. I can go to my doctor, and they will tell me who are good people and I can trust to go and have an experience with, rather than me just trying to ask my buddies and my friends, or having somebody kind of tell me, do this on the weekend and go to Peru and do an ayahuasca ceremony. That is such the wrong strategy, in my opinion. So how do we kind of set up a system that is a lot more open and has a lot more trust to it, but also can give you what you need from people you have been working with in the medical system already?
Absolutely. Jeff, Jojo, this has been such an enlightening conversation. I can't thank you enough for coming and telling us about the work you're doing, and also just like illustrating the need for setting this up in the right way. So thank you both so much for coming on.
Thank you, English, for your interest and for your support, and for having us.
I love you, English. So great to see you. Great to hang.
Love you, Jeff. You're the best.